In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to select the correct note and fingering from the back of your book. In the very back pages of your book, you have what we call a fingering chart. It shows you many different notes and options of fingerings. This page that you're looking at right now is a page from the back of the clarinet book, book 1. And you can see some very common notes here that we use. Here is the note E. You can see where it's placed on the music staff and then the fingering to the right. It looks pretty self-explanatory until you get to either 2 notes on a staff or 2 fingerings. So let me explain what those are. I'm going to start with an option of 2 fingerings. So I'm going to come up here to the top of the page. We're going to look at this very low F, and clarinets know this very low F as the note that we skip to get to a high C. When we add the register key, we get the high C from this note. Now, it's just one letter name, and then it's showing it 3 ledger lines down below the staff, and then to the right we have 2 options for fingering. We can use the fingering that has been originally taught here, or there's an optional fingering, which could be a very nice option when you're going through the B-flat concert scale, moving from B to C just by a pinky. So this is called an alternate fingering. You have 2 options for one note. That's what the 2 different fingerings are. You might see that in a trombone one, 2 different slide positions, or any of the instruments, saxophone, horn, whatever. Now let me show you what we have when we see 2 different notes listed. Okay, I'm just going to go right over next door, and we have either F sharp or G flat. Now, here's what F sharp looks like, the low F sharp, and here is what the G flat looks like. Okay, this is what we call an enharmonic note. It is the same note with 2 different appearances on the staff. Okay, so it's going to look different. It has 2 different names, but it sounds the same. Okay, we can get into the theory of that later, but you have also to the right, you have alternate fingerings. The first fingering shown is the one that's most commonly used, and the second fingering shown is a less common but maybe more convenient fingering for different passages or different ways that you want to play it. So you always want to use the original fingering first, but the alternate is always good for different things. You'll figure it out as you go, like, oh, I could use the alternate fingering for this fast 8th note passage. It would work much better for my fingers, something like that. Now, how do you know you have the right fingering when you're selecting? Well, first you have to make sure, for instance, that you're looking at the note. Let's look at this A. This A is below the staff. You have to make sure that you're selecting the correct A at the correct staff placement. That's going to give you the correct fingering. Okay, this looks a whole lot different than, let's say, this A here, which is in the middle of the staff, and it has an entirely different fingering. You also need to look for sharp or flat next to the letter name here, okay? For instance, here is A, regular A, or A natural we call it, okay? Or if I go over here to the left, this is A flat, and this is an entirely different fingering. Okay, you need to look at that. I'm just going to select a different instrument here to look at. Let's look at trombone. And it's very similar here. Okay, you're seeing a lot of the same things. We have alternate slide positions. Okay, for instance, right here on this A, always our first most important slide position is on the top here. Second, that's how you guys know how to play it. But an alternate would be 6th position, and that might help you in certain passages. So that would be an alternate for you. Okay, that's secondary. We want to know the top option first. Okay, and that is our introduction into using the fingering chart in the back of the book.